So good morning, everyone, again. My name is Belinda Hooks. It is my pleasure to welcome you back. This corporate workshop is entitled Let's Just Do Business. It's brought to you by the University of Nebraska. Doug Carlson, who you'll hear from, is the Assistant Vice President and Chief Procurement Officer and has more than 10 years of experience in government, finance, and procurement. He joined the university in May of 2021. Prior to his university appointment, Carlson served as the state of Nebraska's chief procurement officer, focusing on procurement on behalf of the state while creating, maintaining, and executing 650 contracts across the state worth $7 billion annually. He also served as the deputy director for the Department of Administration Services for the state of Nebraska. In his role as Assistant Vice President and Chief Procurement Officer, Carlson is responsible for leading the new center-led Procure-to-Pay organization, focusing on strategic procurement, system support, payment services, travel, purchasing card, and contract administration. Carlson also proudly serves in the Nebraska National Guard and strategic plans and programs. Carlson's significant military accomplishments include co-authoring the Air Mobility Plan for Nuclear Deterrence and Global Strike. It was recognized by the Air Force Inspector General as the first ever plan of its kind. Carlson is a native of Nebraska. He and his wife, Michelle, live in Lincoln with their 2 dogs. Please help me in welcoming this morning, Mr. Doug Carlson.
Hey, thank you, Glenda. I really appreciate that. My wife will assure you that I'm not that cool, I promise. I'm really excited to get to connect with you all today. I'm going to share my screen and go through a presentation here. So on the screen, you should see, let's just do business. Hopefully you do. You would think that considering I have a computer science undergrad degree, I'd be better with technology by now, but I'm not. So I'm really, really passionate about this topic because there's just so much value in helping minority-owned and women-owned businesses remove barriers, so we can get better products, we can save taxpayers money and all those things. So definitely excited about having a conversation with you all today about some actionable ways that your organization can take to literally do business. So we're going to get into it. So you can see a little bit about me. As Linda said, I'm the Chief Procurement Officer for the University of Nebraska. I was the state of Nebraska's Chief Procurement Officer. I have some federal procurement experience as well. Procurement, it's simple. It's about transparency, accountability, and trust. You can see some numbers down there in terms of volume. On the right is a picture of me. I was with somebody once, and they said, "Hey, I saw your LinkedIn. That's my LinkedIn profile picture. It's a great picture with you and your grandpa." I said, "That's not my grandpa. That is Warren Buffett. I wish Warren was my grandpa. That'd be pretty nice." But I have had the chance to get to know him a little bit. He actually was in the Nebraska National Guard back in the 50s, but I'm diverging from the topic here. So let's talk about economic inclusion. I absolutely love this phrase, economic inclusion. So you can see there that it's about creating these economic opportunities for underserved social groups. And it really is about finding ways to make money and to get better products and all those things. So today I'm going to talk to you about those things because it's not just a social policy choice. It is about making things more effective, efficient, and using your resources in better ways, really to create these sustainable market economies. And you can see there down at the bottom that public companies ranking in the top quartile for ethnic and racial diversity are 35% more likely to have above average financial returns. And they also are 15% more likely to perform better financially. Since I'm from a university, I wanted to cite my source because that's what we do in higher ed. So you can read that. It's an actually really interesting report if you ever get a moment to read it. It's a real easy read. But the bottom line is this, folks: economic inclusion works, and you're going to be better off financially doing it. So we're going to get into what that looks like and how we can just do business, because it does make good financial sense and business sense to commit to these minority and women-owned businesses. And there's a number of benefits, including having access to the best products and services through some of the amazing innovative things that some of these minority owned and women-owned businesses are doing right now. It also is going to minimize your supply chain disruption. And I can't imagine a better time to talk about supply chain than right now. Go try and find a car, you can't. Supply chain is disrupted. And I mean, you think about every little thing. Remember when the world ran out of toilet paper? Supply chain disruption matters, and it matters to all of us because we're all in it together. So having multiple channels to procure goods and services makes a difference. So it's something really to think about, consider. But also you're creating better competition, both from a price perspective, but also a service level perspective, which is really important no matter what organization you're a part of. So having that, it absolutely matters. And then the bottom there is keeping more money in your state. That matters really from a neighborhood perspective, but also from an organization perspective. States that keep money in their own state do better. They just do. Organizations that are in a city that the city keeps money in that city, they do better. It's simple economics. So I want to talk about, okay, now what? So let's give you some actionable plans. And in this case, let's create a procurement strategy. So on the top there is this process integration. We're going to talk about in a couple slides here about what this process could look like. And then building it into your capacity so it becomes, so you become able to accomplish it. And then once you have those policies and procedures, doing an outreach out to these economic groups and minority-owned businesses, and then just doing it. And that's the key here. And then looking at it from a reporting and a monitoring perspective to really evaluate yourself and what that looks like. So we're going to go into each one of these a little deeper. You got to change the plan. You need to create and implement a strategic procurement plan. And here is really, I've been doing procurement for a while now, and this is probably it's best practice to think about spend analysis, what you're spending your money on and who you're giving it to, supplier diversity, how diverse are the suppliers for all those reasons we discussed already. Sustainability is always a part of any procurement plan, or it should be in 2021. Thinking about cost savings and how you drive those cost savings. And then talking about technology, any strategic procurement plan absolutely has to include technology because that's just the way the world is these days. And then thinking about KPIs or key performance indicators where you measure your successes and your failures. So if you're going to think about policies and procedures to implement supplier diversity strategies, I want to give you a couple actionable ways to do that. Really, again, to remove barriers for minority-owned and women-owned businesses. So I did this in the state. We created what we call the procurement contract concierge program. And there's two pieces. There's a vendor and bid opportunities piece, which I'll talk about, and then discovery and innovation piece. And then the last part of that is outreach efforts. So I hear this time and time again from vendors, and not just minority-owned and women-owned vendors, but all vendors. We don't know where to go to even bid on a contract. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. Timely that we just got that presentation previously, but more focused advertising and what that can mean for you. So the first piece of this is the contract concierge program. So it's going to provide a potential vendor looking to do business with your organization a resource on your side. Now, I know what some of you may be thinking. We only have 2 or 3 people doing this. We don't really have time for that. It's actually not that complicated. Once you start figuring out how to walk vendors through the process, it becomes pretty simple, pretty fast. And I was amazed, I'll use the state as the example. I was amazed how quickly we started getting better bids, more opportunities by having this program. So what it is it's one of our procurement professionals on our side guiding this vendor through the system until they're actually ready to submit the solicitation, giving them hands-on training, some formal tutorials, small snippets. It really does not take that long, and really helping them navigate the process because they don't know what to do. And then thinking about, okay, how do we do an outreach to help other minority-owned businesses be successful with us and the stakeholders. And time and time again, at the state, we did it. I did it 34 different times, and every single one of them, the customer service experience was greatly increased. And it really shows that actions matter. Words are really important. We should talk about all these things, but actually doing it makes a huge, huge difference. The second piece is the Discovery and Innovation, D&I Concierge Program. And this is where you engage actively with vendors. Now, a lot of vendors, obviously, they want to sell you things, and that's all well and good, but it really, you need to think about what do they have to offer that you don't know about? And thinking about, okay, I know for a fact that we're going to need to purchase this, whether it's good or service in the next year, and we should listen to what is actually out there. And a really good example, again, I'll use my state example. We're trying to think about mass COVID testing, and there was a minority-owned business that sold these pods, and 4 nurses could be in indoor pod, and they could use the nasopharyngeal swab, test for COVID. And this company was a minority-owned company right in Lincoln, Nebraska, right where I am. I had never heard of this company before. I got connected through a friend of mine with a small business company. And a week later, they had a $1.2 million contract with the state because we bought a number of these pods. So this Discovery and Innovation Concierge piece is to solve for things like that, where what is the art of possible and what don't we know is out there that we should know is out there, and then you buy it. Outreach is important, and creating these networking opportunities. Look, you're all here with Mountain Plains right now. So clearly you're interested in these things, but you should be thinking about expanding this group and then thinking about the local economic development groups as well, which is going to be key. One of the ways that you can do this from an outreach perspective is create what we're calling an opportunity statement. And it's very simple. It's a 1-page document that says, hey, this is what we need. What we don't want to do is require these minority-owned businesses and women-owned businesses to need a lawyer to understand what the proposal is. Again, I've been in procurement for a long time, and these requests for proposals, some of them sound so complicated. My own team wrote it. I don't even know what we're trying to buy, and it's my own team. So think about that from a small business perspective and the challenge that they're going to have trying to understand what we're looking for. So creating a 1-page opportunity statement of, hey, here's what we actually are asking for will make a huge difference. So they understand, hey, this is the art of possible. Yes, we could probably do this. No, we probably can't do this. You got to use data. It's 2021 and we need to act like it, which means that you should be using data-driven decision-making. So using data analytics to drive those decisions, utilizing metrics in a meaningful way. And so figuring out what metrics that you should be measuring is really, really going to make a big difference when you're thinking about your strategic procurement plan. So some examples that you could leverage: increase participation in this program. So, let's say you have a goal of, we want to double the number of bid opportunities for minority-owned or women-owned vendors. You can measure it that way. So a simple one would be contracted participation on design and construction of facilities, whether it's for the university or state. Maybe you all aren't building something. So think about, from your perspective, what is that participation in your program actually look like? But you can also think about it from a payment perspective, because this would be easier to measure. The increased number of bidders. What I always tell folks is, I'm not going to give you the contract because you're a minority-owned or women-owned business. What I am going to do is create an opportunity for you to bid on the contract. And that's success to me. It's up to that vendor to be successful with their bid response, but we want to create the opportunity for them to actually make it easy to bid on. So having the increased number of bidders is probably the right answer. And then you can measure your number of outreach activities as well as the number of networking events. Here's one right now. You're already up 100% right now. So doing those things, reporting and monitoring on these, is going to make a big difference for you. You should also think about some contract language. Modifying, enhancing some of this language is going to create more potential opportunities. So think about unbundling large contracts to provide more opportunities. I'll use a real simple example. Okay, we're going to build a building, right? So you have the A&E firm, architecture firm, but eventually you're going to need somebody to paint the walls. So maybe unbundling it. So you provide, okay, I need somebody to paint the walls. I need a plumber. doing it that way is going to increase opportunities for these minority-owned, women-owned businesses. Helping provide some technical assistance on the contractor requirements also is another opportunity. Now, what I'd say to you, whether it's by law or quite frankly, ethical behavior, if you do technical assistance for one, you probably need to provide that same technical assistance for everyone because that's just best practice. So thinking about it from that perspective. The next thing though is, as a small business, I hear this time and time again, cash flow is always an issue. So think about how you can provide maybe twice monthly payments, smaller checkpoints for them to get paid, so cash flow is not such an issue. Again, this is probably one, if you take away anything from this presentation, it's probably this one, creating the opportunity for them to get the cash flow when they need it. At my time in the state, we had 45 days to pay. That is a long time for a small business. And so I would encourage all of you to think about that as you move these things forward, these bid proposals forward. And then another opportunity there is, okay, you have a prime contractor. Again, I'll use my building example. You have a prime contractor, requiring them to implement a twice monthly payment as well, because not paying their subs when they need that money, it makes a big difference, because a lot of these companies they're small, they're family owned, and trying to float that cash is really, really hard for them. And then obviously promoting access. This is obviously important to all of us because you're all here today. Continue to think differently and continue to remove those barriers and be advocates. Those things make a difference. Just continuing to have these conversations make a difference. Building and sharing a database of the various vendors that you've used. Providing transparency and accountability and visibility for those contracting opportunities, that will make a huge difference. Make it simple for these small companies to know where to go to bid on your contracts. And creating an environment where everyone can win. And that's the expectation. That's going to make a big difference as well. And then thinking about, okay, what did we learn in this last quarter, this last 6 months? How could we be better? And challenging yourself to think differently and to be better. And then continuing this assessment. Look, you start with something and it's going to grow and build, but thinking about conducting interviews and focus groups with these minority-owned companies to continue to challenge yourself and think about, what did you do right? What did you do wrong? How can we be better for our own organization? Because everyone can win at the same time. And then continue to meet and have those conversations and learning best practices that your organization can implement as you move this forward. Because the reality is this: change is really, really hard, and it just is. And so figuring out change management and getting this culture where this is the normal behavior is sometimes tough, because changing processes, whether administrative or due to new technologies, all those things are hard, but you got to start, and you got to start somewhere. So figuring out how to do that is going to make a big difference as you move your organization forward. I want to talk for a moment about best value. What you'll never hear me say as a chief procurement officer is I want the lowest price, because lowest price and best value, they're sometimes not the same. So thinking about all of these things in your screen to capture the best value for your organization is going to make a big difference. So whether it's the components of ownership, thinking about opportunity cost, do you need 1,000 widgets when maybe only 100 will do? Diversity and inclusion, giving opportunities for small businesses, supply chain economics, the constraints, the supply chain disruption that we're currently experiencing. On the right side, thinking about, okay, the incentives, whether we give the vendor incentives, like twice monthly cash payments, all those things, is that going to lower our cost and create a best value for our organization? And then, the reality is politics, policies, and law, that stuff's always gonna have to come into play when you think about procurement. And then what's the return on investment? And because at the end of the day, a lot of your organization is gonna come down to, okay, what is my ROI? So I'm gonna stop the share here, and I'd be happy to have a conversation with you. I recognize that I went through that stuff pretty fast. But I really wanted to put that stuff in front of you so we can have an open dialogue. So with that, I'm gonna pause and open up to questions.
Thank you so very much, Doug. You really did give us a lot of information. I was monitoring the chat to see if anyone had any questions. Since I'm not seeing any questions in the chat, we definitely want to open it up. So if you have a question, please feel free to speak right at this moment.
Hey, Doug. Good morning. My name is Dee. I'm with Worldwide Technology, or WWT for short. And I'm a former procurement professional myself, right? But now I'm on the dark side of selling. And I hear a lot of corporations say, the lowest price doesn't matter, right? But then at the end of the day, it's still the lowest price and everything, right? So how do we get past that? Because I always see, like, even when corporations say it, and they're like, yeah, D, we want to do business with you, but you're not the lowest price. Can you meet this price? And we all know that, like you say, lowest price isn't everything. And especially in the IT world, I can give you the lowest price for the hardware and then just jack my services up and you're going to pay more for it, right? So how do we change that dynamic to really make it and make corporations understand that it's not about the lower price, it's about the additional value that a corporation can provide?
Yeah, you're asking the right question, Dee. You absolutely are. So I have experienced this throughout my procurement experience as well, that the leadership, they're saying the right things, and diversity inclusion and small businesses, we want to give business them, they're saying it, but then in reality they don't practice it. So I think a part of it is to really continue to have these conversations and make that leadership aware of, hey, best value might not be lowest price, and explain to them why that is. So I think part of the challenge is the procurement professional on that organization side has to carry this message, and just to continue to push that message over and over, and to show data that that's proven that best value is better than lowest price.
Hey, if I can interject on that, I got a question in regard to that as well. And one of the things that I'm Richard Rocha with Unified Government, and one of the things that we look at is not the lowest price, as a lot of people indicate. We look at what's going to be the best value for the company. Now, since you're in IT, not only am I looking for, say, a roundabout price, I'm looking for ideas that you have in moving forward. I don't want just the classic answer, I can do the same thing as everyone else. What I'm looking for is, tell me what makes you different than everybody else. That way it gives you a better opportunity to do business with us. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
No, I totally agree.
Go ahead,
I totally
Doug.
agree with that. So.
And we have a couple of questions. Ed Cleaver from Ball Corporation. I see that you had your hand raised, and then we'll end with Stan. And then I just have a couple of statements to make. We're going to take a break and then go into our next workshop. Ed, please.
Yeah, thanks. And Doug, thanks for a great presentation, very thought-provoking. And it's always great to hear another person's experience in this space. I wanted to ask, at Ball, we are really grappling with how do we strategically help develop entrepreneurial, minority-owned, diversity companies, as a large customer of theirs. How do we work with them to proactively help develop, select companies that way? And I've been asking that question to a variety of folks involved with this organization. And one of the responses I've gotten back is, it really comes down to just the way you treat any strategic supplier. It's like treat us like a strategic supplier, and really develop the supplier relationship, provide feedback, share your strategy, help us understand how to do business with you most effectively, continually have dialogue. But I'm just curious, what other kinds of things are you doing? And I'd love to hear from others on the line too. What kinds of things are you all doing to strategically develop, diversity companies as suppliers?
Yeah. So Ed, you probably could have gave this presentation because you and I are thinking exactly about the same things. When I think about, engaging these diverse suppliers and helping them be successful, I can't do it all for them. That's just the reality is, right? So, helping them connect to economic development groups and some number of other groups that can help them be successful. But from an internal perspective, it is about opening this veil of transparency, explaining to them, here's the contract and here's the opportunity in front of you. Now, they got to get through that door, right? But you got to open the door for them. The number one feedback I get from small companies is, I don't even know where to start. Where do I even look to do business with you? And what I've learned is, as I've got connected with more and more diverse suppliers, we have these, hey, did you know that my friend owns this type of business? And, no, I didn't know that. So having a willingness to have those conversations and just meet people in their neighborhoods, those things are going to make a huge difference. The reality of it, there's not one answer, there's 100 answers. And you're probably gonna have to do it all in some aspects. And I realize there's a time equation to all this, but look, you're just gonna have to put the time in.
Absolutely. Stan, you had a question?
I do, Belinda. I want to do a time check first. We okay?
Fine. Yes, you are. Thank you.
Thank you. So really two things. Just that last question that was posed and we talked about, important for all you corporate members. I think that's a great subject for our next corporate roundtable, so that we can spend some significant time among corporate members to just talk about strategic development of suppliers, how to do it, what are elements that we should be working on. So thank you for that, and we're going to incorporate that in our next corporate roundtable. So that's one. And two, Doug, thanks for the presentation. You hit on a bunch of great stuff. One of the things that we're hearing from our corporate members is this whole issue on the economic gap that minority communities have as compared to everyone else. So the argument, and I guess I'll throw it, Doug, into your ROI possible computation is, you're not going to be spending any more money. Maybe you're going to even be spending less. But if you increase that spend with capable, qualified, minority-owned firms, you're also helping on the other side, that whole economic side. And guess what? They tend to spend. They tend to hire more minorities if they have increased business, and they tend to spend in that minority business community. And guess what happens? They end up being able to afford to buy your product and service corporate member. So there's that piece that I think it's a dramatic piece that we're starting now to talk about more and more and more and more. And it's a big benefit. I wish we could start and figure out how to quantify that as a value proposition to minority and supplier diversity.
Yeah, great comments, Stan. Appreciate that. You're 100% right. And by having these conversations, hopefully the goal here is to make more and more organizations actually understand those things, right, that the return on investment can be quantified in a number of ways, and everyone is going to benefit from it. Everyone.
Absolutely. That was great. And Doug, we have one more question. How do you build the advocacy for the organization from the top leadership, supplier diversity manager, and procurement sourcing managers?
You have the courage to go have these conversations. That's it. You have to have a willingness. You have to be an advocate for this and to make them understand it. So when I talk to our chief financial officers at the university and the state, you got to use data. Here's the data, and this is what we're going to get after. Because to your customer, your stakeholder, you got to speak their language, and having a willingness to speak that language and go to them and saying, hey, this is what we need to get after, and here's why, and here's the benefit to you. You got to have that conversation.
Absolutely. And certainly, Doug, we want to say thank you. Want to make sure that I have acknowledged all of the questions that we have for this particular corporate workshop. Now, just so you all should know, Doug has agreed. Doug, you're shaking your head. Yes, Belinda. So Doug has agreed on a monthly basis to help lead the corporate roundtable workshops. We're going to have a different subject. We want to bring in others like the Eds of the world, the Bs of the world, the different folks that really are working in this space to really be able to talk about it. And so we are already planning. Doug has on his calendar. What's the date, Doug? Keep me honest.
I think the October 7th.
Okay. All right. So he has agreed. And so we are going to be bringing a different topic every single month. Every month for our corporate members. So stay tuned for that. You will be getting the invite accordingly. So with that, we want to give you enough time to stretch your legs. We know that Doug has 2 dogs, so let the dogs out accordingly. So what we're going to do right now, let's give Doug a big hand, if you will. Show some love to Doug. We want to thank you to our corporate members at this time. We know that it can be difficult, but certainly you have the passion, Doug. So thank you for your great leadership and insight for corporations and large-scale purchasing organization. The council truly appreciates you. We are at the end of this workshop, so we want you to go ahead, stretch your legs, get some fruit, get some coffee, come back in about 10 minutes for the next corporate workshop. You will hear from who is on the line right now, Mark Hill and Sherry Gonzalez of the KC Civic Council. Enjoy your break. We will see you back here in 10 minutes.